Okay, well, it's really good to get out from under the Mental Health Act. Obviously, life was looking pretty grim. But the problem is that what going in to Hillmorton Hospital under the Mental Health Act, I have been on home leave for the past week or so, which, as I sort of mentioned in a previous video, really did put paid to the idea that I'm a danger to myself and that I'm, well, you know, too crazy to be alone. And that's what the psychiatrist Neil Jameson said. You know, clearly whatever we're doing, we haven't been treating you. And anyway, so I guess I'm really making this video for Wendy and Dave because I've sent Wendy and Dave some of the correspondence I've had with this litigation firm that it was one of the younger ones who came from ACC, and now it's one of the partners. And she's also on the board of directors of a posh religious, Christian school in Auckland, overseeing some building extensions. And so she knows what she's doing. And I've taken it as far as I can, I think, with her to appeal to her sense of her reputation, I guess. Like I just don't know. It's just like this fucking juggernaut. And the psychiatrist, so Dr. Jameson recognises, he doesn't recognise the whole picture, that's not what he's there for, but he recognised from talking to Wendy and looking at other bits and pieces, and Wendy was pivotal, as I say, that this is not a mental illness. It is neither a mood disorder nor a delusion. Now, we know it's not a delusion because there's the hard evidence, hard proof, and Wendy has testified to that. And we know it's not a mood disorder because mood disorders are disorders of the mood. They are not disorders of reaction, or, they're not negative moods either, because humans are meant to have a full range of moods. And having a trauma response to abuse is normal. It's not a mental illness. And what you do to treat people who are being traumatised is you help them out of the trauma. You don't send them to a mental hospital. Now, New Zealand is very, very, very behind criminology and sociology and psychiatry, where all that comes in. So in other countries, and Australia is really coming along very quickly on this. Australia is a far advanced country. We know that vulnerable people get bullied and mobbed, and we know that they can behave in ways that appear to make them look like the aggressor, because that's a really normal response to people who have been bullied and very badly abused, because what it is, it's not aggression, and it's a horrible thing to say, to call it aggression, because it's not aggression, it's a defence. Aggression comes from being the aggressor. It doesn't mean you're reacting in a very strong or even violent way to abuse. And so people who come along and blame the victim are quite simply just part of the problem. And so when I say I have no family, I mean that's what I mean really, because family has a connotation that my family doesn't carry. So everyone has just decided that I'm crazy and I need to go to the hospital. Now, I concede that perhaps there is some idea that suicidality is in itself a mental illness. No, it's not. And the Mental Health Act, is archaic as it does understand that. So I guess I'm sort of speaking to Dave here, because Dave is very instrumental in trying to get me to go to Hillmorton. Suicidality is not enough to go to a mental hospital. So we don't really have a place to put suicidality in the West. And there are some legal and philosophical kind of conundrums about what to do about it. Is it? It's not a crime, but we've got to somehow put it in the criminal sphere. Otherwise, people who incite other people to suicide can't get adequately punished, and we can't recognise the impact on people that, as I've used in sign-offs in my emails. Abuse is a crime. Why does it stop becoming a crime when the victim becomes suicidal? Why does it then become a mental illness? It doesn't make any sense. What it means is the crime has become so severe, or the impact of the crime has become so severe that the victim needs to die. Now, why is that a mental illness? That is the point of very severe abuse and psychological torture, and that's what I've been subjected to for 13 months. And that psychological torture has come from my family. A lot of that torture has been, well, I'd say most of it's unintentional. It's a bit of spite, quite a lot of spite came from Catherine. But I'd say most of the torture has been unintentional. But what it has been is it's been very lazy as well. And so people have just sort of held forth on my situation without bothering to look at it, and without heeding my cries of anguish, and just treating that as sort of part of the problem rather than a symptom of this horrible abuse that this woman is suffering. And it's quite amazing to be able to sit here and speak so dispassionately about what I've been going on with, because it's just absolutely beggars belief what's happening to me. And I feel like I'm belittling my experience of speaking calmly about it, as if, come on guys, can you recognise it please? Because it's just absolutely phenomenal what's happening to me, and it's absolutely phenomenal that you guys won't recognise it. Or at least you recognise bits of it, but don't understand that that's how the impact occurs. Because we know, you're aware that there are crimes. I don't know why people suddenly think that crimes don't exist when someone says that they're having crimes committed against them. For all of a sudden, no one thinks the Crimes Act is ever exercised or has any origins in human behaviour. Now, there are two reasons that you can be held under the Mental Health Act, and so suicidality is one of those reasons, and both of them need to be had together. So as Wendy knows, and Dave probably doesn't, a lot of legislation, you'll have subsections that either need to, either or can be sufficient for something to be the case or to happen, or they both have to. In the case of the Mental Health Act, two things need to occur together, and implicitly that they have a causative relationship. One of them is that there is a mental illness, and the other is that there is a risk or occurrence of self-harm or harm to others. Now, suicide, I'm afraid, is only that second one. Okay, so you've actually got to show that there's a mental illness there. And so my fear is that I'm going back. I've been diverted. Sorry, I've got quite a lot of GERD at the moment. I think I've got GERD, gastro. So I've got a big reflux problem. I've had it for quite a while. So I'm coughing a lot and have a lot of heartburn and stomach pain and all that kind of stuff. So please excuse me, but I can't help it. The cough's part of it. So what happens in New Zealand is people, even, it's a real shame, it's even happening with the coronial services, is that suicides are automatically categorised as mental health problems, and we think there's not enough people dealing with mental health. No, it's quite true that we don't have enough people to deal with mental health, but we've got virtually no one dealing with it properly. Because what you do with a traumatised person is you don't pin them down and bruise them. I'm serious, you guys, like that's what happened to me. And I don't know how you think that that's actually helping a traumatised person. I was pinned down routinely by several nurses and a couple of security guards, and I was bruised in the process of receiving injections of an antipsychotic that made me feel absolutely atrocious. That is abuse. That is abuse. It's illegal for a number of reasons, and MAPS, which is the mental health and advocacy, peer advocacy, the support around here. Now I am engaged with them, and they've triaged me very high, and they are, excuse me, they are doing what they can for me, but they are so thinly spread. I mean, I actually think that my advocate, because I do have an advocate as well as a peer support person, but they are so thinly spread that I actually think my advocate is about to have I think my advocate is heading to the same route that I am. They don't have enough people. They didn't have enough people as it is, and they've prioritised me. But there's not much they can do, and I feel like I really kind of get how ready to snap that support is. And to try to be a really traumatised person and explain to new people what's going on, because initially I thought I just needed a bit of advocacy with the landlord, and maybe we can mediate and we can explain to them that the oven problem was just a misunderstanding. It's like, oh my God. And I had a real flip out, because that was a real trauma trigger for me, where it's like, oh my God, it's happening again, where people think that I don't understand, and that, or someone doesn't understand me. And what the problem is that they think that the crimes that are being committed against me are actually just sort of misunderstandings. And that's the most horrible, horrible, horrible thing for a victim to hear, and it just made me go cold. Now, they have started to understand now, okay, right, you need to go to the police. You don't need us to mediate between you and the landlord. You need to go to the police. But I've got to tell them what's happened. And the thing is that I find it very difficult to tell people what's happened. So I need an advocate to tell the police, and I need an advocate who believes me. And that's got to be a fairly automatic belief at this point, because everyone in my fucking life for 13 months, and I've asked hundreds and hundreds of people now, immediately thinks that their role is to judge whether or not what I'm saying is true. Now, can you imagine if you were a little child being raped every night by a family friend? Do you think that is a good way for that child to have to try to overcome that abuse? Now, we know that children are raped in their beds several times a week for decades, I should say a decade or so. We know that happens, and I understand how that happens now, because no one fucking believes them. Everyone thinks that they are going to be the arbitrator, or they're going to be the one who, well, let's just be reasonable here. And when you're a victim, you don't want someone to come in and be sceptical. You want someone to limp it by your side and go, we are going to stand between you and the abuser. Now, I don't know why everyone, but it's obviously just human nature. Everyone, we know now when a child says, someone is hurting me, someone is touching me in my underpants, someone is lying on top of me at night, we know now to take that very seriously. And we know that in New Zealand, that our Oranga Tamariki have, in fact, well, who knows, but have been sort of contention over whether or not they're being too sensitive about in response to what may not be actually abuses. But whatever it is, we know we need to actually be the eyes and ears for children. Now, for some reason, a 45-year-old woman is not a credible, as I keep saying, is not a credible witness to the events of her own life. So what I have is person after person after person going, we want to support you, and we think we better judge whether or not, how you need that support. And it sounds like a mental health problem. Can you imagine what that's like? If I was being raped every night in my bed as a 7-year-old, and that's the kind of response you get, well, that's what you're doing to me. Okay. And then you send me to a mental hospital where I get very hostile treatment by the staff there. So MAPS is actually, of their own volition, has raised a complaint with the head of Hillmorton, and they are forwarding photos that have been taken of my bruises. And some of those photos some of them are taken by one of my roommates. And then other of the photos were actually taken, they were more medical photos, and they were taken on another ward where the nurses there were actually quite horrified about what was happening to me, and they wouldn't do the treatment they said, we don't think this is necessary and we don't understand why this is happening to you. Okay, so I need the chair psychiatrist in my family to back the fuck off and actually understand what a mental health problem is and what it isn't. So I do accept that there's a problem in this country and it's not your fault. For some reason, we think of suicide immediately as being a symptom of a mental health disorder or suicidality, and it's just not true. The Mental Health Act, as I said, itself recognises it's not a mental health condition. What it is it can be a symptom of a mental health condition, and the purpose of the assessment period is to see if that is the case. Now, obviously, they don't want people left alone if they're suicidal in cases of mental illness that could be cured to stop it. But it's been absolutely affirmed beyond a shadow of a doubt that there was a mistake. There is no mental illness. What there is people can see that there is something really horrible happening in the emotions of a woman, and then this is a senior psychiatrist who's now taken over. The other two younger guys have gone off into the outpatients. This senior doctor who's very experienced has come in and he's just gone, there's no reason for you to be here. There's clearly not a mental illness. We can see that you have a lot of life stressors that have been going on for a very long time. And whatever they are, and whatever your role is in those, thanks for victim blamers, whatever it is, those are not mental illnesses. Those are real events that are making me feel as if I can no longer remain alive because I can't get any help. So, now, that first bit, you need to have a mental illness. I don't have one. I certainly do have a very, very bad impact on my mental health, and that's acknowledged by the psychiatrist. Okay, you guys, he knows, they can see, very bad impact on my mental health, but it's not something that they can treat psychiatrically because it's not a primary condition. So it's secondary to my life stressors. They can't treat those life stressors. That's not their area. What they can do is they can try to refer me into the community. But I find, my experience when they refer me into the community is that I've had more victim blaming, going, well, clearly there's something that you're doing wrong. You're not being a good tenant. Maybe it's because you need help to be a good tenant. Maybe you just, need a bit of support to keep the place tidy or to pay your rent. And it's like, oh my fucking God. It's like just being trapped in a fucking hell. What people need to realise is, like, you can't just say, well, I'm sure it's not really, you don't mean to be a bad tenant, but you are, and that's why these consequences are happening. Let's try to support you in your tenancy. It's like, for fuck's sake, I have a really heavy fucking corporation after me. Okay, that's Harcourts, that's all of Harcourts. And it's the owner of the building who's just stepped aside and let the Harcourts litigation firm come and take me to pieces, okay? All right, that's not in my mind, that's real, and I've sent you an email and you can see all of that. You can see who it is, you can see who the litigators are, Shirelle Mitchell and Dominic Clapham from Heaney Associates. Shirelle's a partner. So it was initially just Dominic, and now Shirelle's taken over. So, I've got the thumb screws on me, okay? And this is hired by Tony Jenkins, who is the CEO of Harcourts Homewood, which is a company, but in itself has a lot of different branches. So it's a company under Harcourts, I think, but there's some real dodgy shareholdings and shit going on, and there's a lot of ranks. Ranks have just closed on me like dominoes all the way to the top, okay? It's not in my mind. You can see this for yourselves if you fucking take a moment to have a look at the emails. Now, and there's a lot of real bad offences against the Building Act and all that kind of stuff here. It's fucking real. But for some reason, I'm crazy, can you imagine what this is like? Just imagine what it's like. Before thinking, well, I'll be the judge of whether Caitlin's telling the truth. How about just go, well, let's just suppose she's telling the truth, because the danger that she is, and we don't believe her, is that she's going to kill herself. So do you think it's worth taking a bit of a chance that maybe what I'm saying is true, and maybe you can shh and listen and try to help me? Because every time someone comes to me and goes, maybe you misunderstood, or is that really what happened? You are killing me a bit more. You're killing me a bit more. Because it makes me totally alone. And so when you say we love you and we support you, that is like being set adrift in the middle of the Atlantic. Not a cloud in sight, no land in sight, and you're really thirsty, and people are going, but there's water all around you. That's what that support feels like. It's completely unusable, and in fact, it's actually quite poisonous. Really poisonous. If I drank that water, I would die quite quickly, and that's what's happening to me now. So my big fear is that I have to still keep reaching out for help, because sometimes I find the energy to keep reaching out for help. And to do that, I really need to impress on you how much I cannot continue to live under these extraordinary and really long-term, totally isolated human rights abuses. Okay, they're human rights abuses under the Human Rights Act, and they come under all kinds of documents under the United Nations. The United Nations list stuff that's been happening to me, and all kinds of stuff that hasn't even been happening to me, like stuff that you guys would go paranoid, but the UN knows is actual psychological torture, and that includes using technology that actually is focal, like it can create focal sounds, so only one person in a room can hear it. And I think if you guys need any encouragement to understand what that means, if you think about, I think it was Neil's 21st, was it Neil and William's joint 21st at, I say El Casino, in that side room, and it had that very weird, it was a feature of the room where there was a kind of like a a convex sort of ceiling, maybe brass or something, and you could hear a whisper from the other side of the room. So I just want you guys to just stop going, well, it doesn't sound right, and actually just listen to what things actually exist, and just understand that we have a Crimes Act for a reason, we have a Whistleblowers Act for a reason, we have a Harassment Act for a reason, and we have a Human Rights Act for a reason. I just want you to think about why we have those, and then why you think it's so unbelievable that those rights that Caitlin has, like every other citizen, why it wouldn't be Caitlin that it's happening to? Why am I so unbelievable? Why do all of you know better than I do, having paid no attention to what's happening to me? And the thing is that you don't need to help me, you don't need to believe me, but I'd really like it if you left me alone, if you're not going to do that. And Dave, I think you're starting to understand that Homewood is targeting me, but you must not turn up to my home unannounced, because that's terrifying, because I've got these fucking creeps turning up to my house. I have all sorts of things. You cannot do that to a traumatised person. If you want to show support, you support me adult to adult. I am a fucking adult. And I am not a possession. I am not secondary to somebody else. My interests don't come secondary to Wendy. I'm not a child. I'm not, I'm myself, and I am very badly traumatised, and I'm being very badly harassed in my home. Now, I'm not being harassed at the moment. Everything's all gone silent. They have withdrawn everything from me. I have light bulbs that can't be changed by the tenant, and 2 of them have gone. So I've actually got darkness in my living room, and I'm trying to illuminate it with lamps. They are not, no one is responding. No one will come forward as my landlord. This is the very strange thing. So Shirelle Mitchell, I said, Shirelle, so they've ordered me off talking to Harcourts, that Tony did that. He hired litigators to stop, the CEO has hired litigators to stop me asking for my rights under the Residential Tenancies Act. And I can't get hold of the owner. He won't reply to me. I rang him once and he was extraordinarily aggressive and hostile and hung up on me. He doesn't have an email address I can find. Under the Building Warrant of Fitness and anything else I can see, like in council documents and whatever. He appears to have about 5 different addresses. This guy is a real crook. He's a real crook, okay? And I just need you guys to believe me and stop being skeptical and stop trying to judge for yourselves. You are not the judge of this. I have been living this for 6 months and I know what I'm talking about. I am an adult. I don't know why you guys think I know less than Jenny or Neil or Catherine or anybody. Why on earth do you think I know less? I don't know what the fuck it is. I know more. I am living this and I am really smart and I have read a lot of legislation and I've talked to quite a lot of people and I know what the fuck is going on. And the fact of the matter is the fact that you don't know what's going on means you need to listen or you need to butt out, because I've been released from the mental hospital now. And all that was a really massive, a very unpleasant, traumatic diversion from my trying to solve my fucking human rights abuses problems that is going to end up with me being homeless. I'm not going to be homeless again. Because if I'm homeless again, that is not just having to find a new flat. That is, can everyone just stop imagining that renters are subhuman? Because we're not. And homes mean the same thing to us as they do to humans, okay? Now, I've just been released from a psychiatric hospital for what was supposed by the younger callow doctor as a mood disorder. Now, if that's serious enough to hold me in the mental hospital, and it's actually just a reaction to the life events, do you think maybe it's time to stop fucking traumatizing me? Because that's trauma. Okay. And I am facing something that is making my life impossible to carry on living because there's just nowhere for me to be. Okay, that's if all lives are precious and mean something in New Zealand, then it's not stopping me from dying. It's actually making my quality of life, actually high enough for me to be able to keep living, because everyone has to have a home, and a home isn't just a shelter. It's not a soup kitchen. It's not being bundled off to another place because, it's just easier to get you out of that tent. It's actually just not. It's actually really fucking expensive and it's really stressful and it's really heartbreaking. And what it means is that it's telling you that we're not going to fight by your side. We're just going to help the abusers out and get you out because that's what they want. And I don't need any advice about which battles to choose. I need either help with what I say I need help with, or I need people to leave me alone. So I am saying that, yes, I am going to die. And I don't know exactly how, but I'm going to make it happen because I'm not moving again. Okay? I just want you to know that. And you can't call the mental hospital because it's only self-harm. It's not a mental health problem. Okay, and that's been signed off that very, very clearly by a head psychiatrist who just looked at everything and immediately just said, as he said to me, he just said, I can't even see, I do not know why you're here. I do not know why you're here. They are not going to readmit me for suicidality. He knows. He knows. That's why he tried to get the district inspector to help me, but the district inspector won't help me because she's now, all of a sudden, because now they've unadmitted me, she's doesn't have that jurisdiction because it's only for the Mental Health Act. And she told me to suck eggs and eventually referred me on to the tenancy services. So I sent her off with a flea in her ear because I don't want people to refer me to other services. I want people to help me, and that's by helping me. So when I ask someone to help me, I mean, can you help me? I don't want any ideas. I don't want suggestions and I don't want advice. One day I can give all of that to you because I'm the one with the experience and the knowledge, okay? Not you. And so I need at this stage to either, first thing is I need people around me who will publicly speak back to these bullies and say, what are you doing? Because I am all by myself and nobody will ever step up and say, we're with Caitlin. Do you know what that feels like? So when you say you're going to help me or when you offer to talk to them on my behalf, what I want is one person who is willing to reply from any of the CCs or the BCCs that I send and say, yeah, what are you doing? I need people around me who believe me, who come in with an attitude of belief and then let the evidence build up and justify their belief, and then be around me. And just, firstly, that's what I want. I can't get anyone to actually either agree to be someone who can be openly CC'd. I have some supporters who will say, well, you can copy me in or do it blind or forward it on. But I need someone to come out and say, I'm with Caitlin, and literally nobody has done that. So my bullies have literally nobody except other people, such as Mitchell, openly supporting them and telling me I have to apologise to them. Now, I would really love you guys just to think about what it looks like for someone who's trying to take a very vulnerable female out, which is what they're trying to do. Try to see that for 6 months, nobody has stepped up to say, what the fuck are you doing? No one's even said, this sounds fishy. It's just been Caitlin all by herself, and then you guys say, she's really aggressive or she's being abusive. It's like, how dare you? My aggression is my only fucking friend. That's the only thing on my side. That's me. Sending me to a mental hospital is not being on my side. Starting to help me with tenancy problems by saying, well, I'll be the judge of if they're problems or not. That is kicking me in the fucking guts, and it is like a terminal illness. That's what you were contributing in a terminal illness. And on the date of the tenancy tribunal hearing, and I'm not going to go to it unless I have support. I'm not going to that. That's going to be hell. I've already been to one of those, and I had a heart rate of 145. I'm not having a panic attack in front of people bullying me. I'm not going. And so that's going to be the new date that I would probably die, or I would die not long after that. Now, the psychiatrist knows that. I'm sorry, you can't default to ringing mental health crisis. That's not the solution, okay? So the other thing that happens is that if you're not going to hurt yourself but otherwise hurt somebody else, so in that case what they do, so one of the only ways you can just, the Mental Health Act hold would expire is if actually you can be held in the forensics ward, which means you're dangerous to other people, and that can still be mental health. But the only way you can get out of the Mental Health Act as a natural, without someone deciding, without the responsible clinician deciding, as if you become more criminal than mental, basically, and to the extent that you need to go to prison. That's what it is, basically. So we have two really good options for people. We have a good option for people who have a mental illness and a suicide or otherwise inclined to self-harm. That is the mental hospital. We have a really shit mental hospital where they abuse their patients, but nonetheless that's the concept that prevails over that. Then if people are going to harm other people, then they can go into maybe a higher security mental health institution. But otherwise, if they're just plain going to harm other people without a mental health problem, they go to prison. Now, if people want to harm themselves without a mental health problem, everyone seems a little bit stuck about what to do. They still just really think they really want to put them in the mental health hospital, but you can't you can't stop someone who's suicidal for criminal and human rights abuses reasons. That's not what the mental hospital treats. Okay, that's for the police and that's for the Human Rights Commission. And we don't really have an adequate pathway for people like that because, as I say, as soon as the abuse gets bad enough that it starts to make the patient not have a life that they care to live or feel even able to, because it becomes such a torture. in the mind of the public and you guys, automatically that just moves into a mental health problem. It's like, so what I've been doing is I have had police contact because people helpfully call the fucking police to do a welfare check, and I'm like, no, my welfare's shit. I don't know what you think you're checking on. My welfare's shit. I'm intending to die because people are criminally abusing me. And they're like, oh, well, And then they put me onto a mental health nurse, and it's like the mental health nurse just tells you, this is what the mental health nurses do, I'm afraid. This is what the mental health crisis nurses do. Really sorry to boost whatever, I don't even know what it is you imagine they do. They tell you, what do you usually do to self-soothe? What would you usually do to relieve your distress in the situation? And I would tell them, and they say, okay, well, won't you do that now? So when they ask me that now, I just say, never you mind, it's going to be too time consuming to tell you, I'm just going to do it. But when I've rung them myself, rather than had them rung on me, which is most unhelpful because I just have to have a tedious conversation with someone who knows less about coping skills than I do, because I've had a lifetime of training, really, because I've been in the psychiatric and, psychotherapeutic sort of environment all of my life. I don't know why people think mental health crisis team, which is really dealing with people who know nothing about how to manage their mental health. I don't know why they want to send me back to preschool when I've actually got an advanced degree in self-soothing. What I'm in now is a real terror state where I'm really badly traumatized, and having to tell a different mental health nurse like a couple of times a week, everything that's been going on for me is a very traumatic experience, because I just have to explain my same story over and over again. And you might have heard of re-traumatization, and it especially is re-traumatizing when they're like, maybe you just misinterpreted. It's like, I'm sorry, but that's just not what you want from mental health support. Mental health support for a traumatized person is, we believe you and we will help you. We may not understand everything, but we will work to understand, and we won't make suggestions until we do. Now, is there anything that we can do right now for you? Okay, it sounds like we need to show visible support, and we need to have people around you right now, because this is a social disease. This is a social disease. Okay, so the community starts to cure that disease. Now, the community that turns away from the person or tells them that they're the problem, that becomes metastatic, and that's this terminal illness that I have. And so I don't want to die. I love my home. I really love my home, and I love St Albans, and I love Christchurch. I love it here. I like my stuff, and it makes me really sad to think that, this is an environment that I have to leave. And I think a lot about what it'd be like to die, and I'm trying to comfort myself, but it's very hard to do. I think it was Voltaire who said, I don't fear death, because where death is, I am not, and where I am not, death is not. So that's what I'm faced with. Okay, so that's the pinnacle of the comfort that I have. Okay. So, no, I don't know how I'm going to die, but the point is that I'm going to do it. Okay, I'm going to find a way, and it may not be very nice, but I'm now desperate because I'm getting closer to the stage. Now, between the social worker and one of the barristers that the district inspector appointed me for challenging Section 13, she just recognised that I needed a lawyer to ask for an adjournment, because I wasn't getting any traction with the TT, because they're just absolute, they don't, whatever they do, it's not fucking law, it's not justice. So that barrister managed to, and the social worker managed to adjourn that date. Now, the idea of adjourning the date is that there would be support for me by now to help me, but there still isn't. And the thing is that when you talk about suicide, everyone just wants to make it a mental health problem. But if I don't talk about suicide, people don't understand how badly this is affecting me. And I had the psychiatrist today, great as he was, again, didn't understand that it's not primarily a tenancy problem, and it's not a problem that's solved by moving me on to somewhere else. Okay, what that is chronic homelessness. That's what it means. So if you actually look at what homelessness means, it means not having a fixed home. And we do have street homelessness, which is a particular kind of homelessness. And it's obviously an awful kind of homelessness, although it's often chosen because that's, people have a lot more freedom. People actually do choose that. It's the truth. It's a fucking fact, and I know it is a fact. But the kind of homeless I'm dealing with is when you never have somewhere that's yours, never relax, never feel that you can have a sort of a permanence. And I just get really surprised with all the lefties in my family who seem to understand the concept of people needing secure, stable, long-term homes, such as what you might find in Germany, and yet somehow thinks that the renters they know are just like totally couldn't care less about where they lived. And, you know, I think if anyone comes into my homes, I'm not saying they might like the decor, but they can certainly see that those are very beloved homes. And I don't know why people think that it's going to be easy for someone who's very badly traumatised to then pack and move again, you know, because I arrived in Christchurch absolutely, I was in a state of abject terror that people kept diagnosing, misinterpreting as a kind of slump or depression or a funk and trying to drag me out of the house. And so then we had the Morgans arrive to drag Caitlin out all of a sudden, and Caitlin was actually just trying to fucking get her shit together very quietly, and it was a really horrible experience. I have a very strong physical response to people turning up to my home unannounced, and I would just really like a bit of respect for that. I don't want anyone unannounced visiting me. I do not want it. I don't accept it. It is my choice, not yours. It is my home, not yours. If I let people in, I want to know in advance. If I don't answer the phone, it's because I don't want to talk on the phone. It doesn't mean there's a problem with me. Not wanting to talk on the phone isn't a mental illness. It's not a sign of being unhappy. It's a sign of not wanting to talk on the phone. Now, I need help. I don't want ideas. I'm not going to any more advocacy places because the advocacy places harm me as well. Everybody fucking harms me. The people I ask for help are the people I want the help from. Okay, I know who to ask. I don't want any ideas. I don't want any referrals. For fuck's sake, the district fucking inspector on duty referred me to. First, I didn't even ask her for help. The psychiatrist asked her to get me some legal help, and she took that. She referred me to the Tenants Protection Agency. I said, they're not operating anymore. And she says, yes, I can see they're open on Monday. I said, they're not open. She says, I want to give you the number. I said, I've got the number. You try and ring it. And then she took back to me and she says, oh, they're closed, as if I hadn't just told her that. She says, it looks like you just have tenancy services for information. And she gave me the link to the fucking tenancy services. And I said, maybe you should take social studies this year because you might be interested in studying law at a later date. And I said, that's what that sounds like to me. You know, how fucking helpful is that for a person who's rented for 5 years and is being criminally harassed by people who have now hired litigators? How helpful is it to refer me to the fucking tenancy services website? My God. Next you want to tell me how to tie my shoelaces. It's just like so deeply, deeply offensive and insulting, and I'm not offended by much. And then people get shirty going, oh my God, she's resisting help. She's being so rude. It's like, do you start to get a feeling when people just refer you round and round in circles to, then like, oh, you need some housing advice. No, I need criminal prosecution, and I need help to go to the police, and I need help to go to the Human Rights Tribunal. But number one thing is I want support around me. Because when people do believe me and say that's fucking horrible, and they do sometimes, that is just like, I just feel like life starts to flow into me. It's like medicine. And then when someone goes, I'll be the judge of that, or I don't know, maybe we have different perspectives, that's when you start to like put your knife into my stomach and start ripping it up into my chest. And people who don't care about the effect they're having on me, or don't think it's important, or that I'm right about what the effect is on having me, have no place in my life, and they're not my family. Now, I'm really, I've been in training for dying for quite a while, because I've had to really process that. And you get dickhead mental health nurses who ring me going, this is before I got committed, going, how are you feeling today? Are you feeling suicidal day? I said, it's not. I never feel suicidal. What I have is feelings about knowing that I have to die, but that's a decision that I've made based on my intractable circumstances. So what really people need to do with suicidal people that are not harmful to others, or who have any mental illness, what we need to do for those people is understand what's making them feel like they can't live, and just see what would make their life able to be lived again. Now, maybe relieving the chronic, gobsmackingly evil abuse is a really good start. And maybe just coming around them to support them around the abuse, and putting themselves between them, that person and the abuse, will be really helpful. The most harmful response I've received lately, or one of the most, is, well, maybe we will explain to your landlords the misunderstanding and how you didn't get it, or maybe we can help you be tidier. And that's just basically like, to be honest with you guys, for you and Dave, and I've told Mitchell this several times, I've come really close to topping myself a few times over the last few days. Like, very, very, very close, to the point that I've started to have a very strong stress reaction, because it's like, this is it. Okay, so I don't have a plan, but when you're really desperate, and I'm going to be in a situation where I'm going to be absolutely desperate to die very quickly. And as I've said before, ages ago, I said I've started to think of things, quite horrible things, that I could do to my body that I never, ever would have wanted to do, but I might have a choice. I just need you guys to think about how you think that you might be able to deal with that. And I think you really just need to know that you can't call the mental hospital. You can't call a mental hospital. If you did that to a little girl who has been raped every night by a family friend, say once were warriors, with uncle, bully, do you think it's a nice thing to that girl to say, well, I don't know, we'll be the judge of that. Maybe you're misunderstanding it. I'm sure he didn't mean it that way. Well, let's have a look at it, but I don't know, I have to look at it first, I have to judge for myself. And the best thing that Jake ever did was take care of that man. Jake Hickey stood up at that point. Even he did that. Even he recognised someone being abused and needed the abuser to go away.